You share a lot of your strongman competitions on your social media. I like to keep my life very private, right? I don't need people to know everything about me through social media. If they want to know about me, they have interactions with me and they talk with me.
I would much actually prefer to see more pictures of the babies on Instagram.
I know,
but I wouldn't have to call you and ask, like, feel like these creepy questions I'm asking. But
I could also share, Justin, just for reference to this, how you doing? Yeah, I don't care. I just want to see a baby picture. But there's ways we can share, like, family photos and stuff like that. They're social media, we think of just as those big names, right? But we do photos and we put them in the cloud and share those with family.
Yeah.
So, like, definitely can be done.
I think, like, I share the strongman to just add like a more of a personal aspect on my work page. Personal page gets everything, family, friends, whatever. But the work stuff gets the odd thing with strongman, just because I feel like it's a cool branding versus anything. Where like
it humanizes.
In my email signature is like strongest broker in Canada, and like I literally got a deal done by a private lender because he liked that the other day, and he's like, I'm only going to put my limb out for this because I like you. So I think there's just like little things like that should be on kind of like the branding side of it. But yeah, generally speaking, like my Facebook almost sees no post ever because I just hate that world.
I think if somebody were to look at mine, it's quite old. Very dated.
Because like, so I asked you that question because like I definitely noticed when I started, all my friends, like, whether or not I pushed them away or not, I don't feel like I did. Maybe I just went dark, but like they just like scattered afterwards.
I've told you before, but I'll share with people. I never wanted to be a real estate agent. When I got out of high school, I thought it was cool, and I thought I could fit in with become a real estate agent. But there was such a dark cloud over being a real estate agent, like that whole belief of slimy and unethical.
And look where he is now, folks.
But that was and that's like, to me, it took a leap of faith to do it, but to do it in my way.
Yeah.
Right? Where people can trust me to do it. Right? And that's also probably why when I let people come into my network, I'm going to say, like, if they're asking me for help, I'm only going to help them if they know who I'm truly going to be for them. Where a lot of people who come in, they've had these poor experiences.
Yeah.
And that's their way of defining what a real estate agent is, right?
Yeah.
So
no, 100%. I think like you referred me a fellow realtor earlier this year, and they were in a pretty dark spot and worked with somebody else that kind of made it worse by the end of it. Because it was a crappy situation with the client, I got invested trying to make it better. But then I was able to see like the people that they worked with previously, I thought were like way up there. And then to hear from their experience and then have other clients come later, similar comments to being like, oh, this is like a night and day experience, is cool, because that's also another way you can be like, I don't feel like I'm a top producer anymore. Apparently I'm giving a much better experience than top producers are giving. It's a good way to like also measure yourself up that way a little bit.
I think I haven't got to this point, but I'm going to ask you the question. Have you ever told a client that you can't help them because you're in a spot that just doesn't allow you to do it? Maybe there's something going on in your life.
No, I should have though.
Tell me about this.
I have two experiences when my mom right first passed. I thought I was fine at the time. I clearly wasn't, obviously, but like no one in my brokerage at the time either, that who all knew what was going on, even like lent out a hand. So like I thought I was fine. So I'm like, I don't need to ask for help. But then there wasn't like a better person above. And I guess this is me passing the buck a little bit, but like I have somebody that works under me now. And like if the situation I went through was what he was going through, I'd be like, hey, you take some time off, give me your files, like same split, I'll deal with them to the end. Like, deal with your stuff, right? And that never happened to me. So because of that, I lost one client who I had helped on like 4 or 5 different transactions, and he's come back to me now recently actually, but it took almost 2 years for that to kind of rekindle a little bit. And whether or not I think a realtor kind of was like, hey, talk to Justin anyway, like he got you to the spot, like he'll help you with it or whatever. But it still took 2 years for somebody that I was doing probably 2 transactions, maybe a 3rd transaction a year with every year for like 2 years, to then like nothing, right? And so there was that situation. And then there was another situation where there's a lot of layers to unfold here, but the client wasn't truthful with me on how things played out. the story that he told me, I had an original approval, and then it just kind of all fell apart because it wasn't truthful. But even during that time too, I'm trying to deal with the personal stuff going on, being at the hospital for my stepdad. So it's just like a super clunky, and I should have passed it along. I should have said, hey, I can't help you. But again, I didn't. Like, I look back now, I'm like, yo, I was like totally fucked up. But like, I just didn't know at the time. It was like, I have to try and get this done as best as possible.
Yeah.
I'm in a spot now where I could do that. Well, I think I'm aware enough I could do that, but it hasn't come across yet. So
Yeah. No, I always found like if I told people how I was doing, they would understand.
yeah.
And it's one of the scariest things to do until you do it. And if you told somebody, hey, I need a breather for a good X days, like, yeah, they'll say, yeah, take it, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's more important.
After 2021, I still wasn't confident doing brokering,
Yeah.
which is weird to say. The confidence actually came like more or less last year, I think, with that partnership of being like, if these people want to be working with me and partnering with me, then there has to be like, there's a reason to it, right? And those people are people that I consider kind of like on a pedestal in the industry. Like they're not much older than me. What they've built and what they've done is like pretty impressive. So I was like, okay, here comes the confidence now. And I've had that confidence now throughout. So now it's easy to say, like, just on a discovery call, like, hey, I'm not the broker for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. Like you said, you have that list and I never go back and look, but it definitely took like 4 years to get that confidence.
It's funny. When we say the list, I put little tabs on everybody and every correspondence, and I have an ignore list.
An ignore list.
Yeah, and that's my best way of doing it. Is instead of saying something mean or just ignore or don't take the time, because it fires you up.
I track like listing agents and stuff all the time. That's like how I market to people going forward and
You
things.
marketed to, hey?
And you are
Actually, let's talk about this after. Listing versus buyer's agents.
So I have like a list of about 100 real estate agents that I've had more or less correspondence with, but I think it was up to 105 at one point, and I had like randomly have had different broker or agents be like, hey, stop emailing me. It's like, no problem. But out of 105 people, I've had 3 agents, and I've marketed them for 6+ months now, every week, every Friday. So it's like, even if like, and the 3 that said no, I'm like, oh, really? That's kind of interesting, but like, whatever, like, I don't care, delete, next.
Yeah.
So don't be scared. Like even if like it wasn't a great transaction, like reach out to them again. It's like, hey, what's going on? I've had out of 700 and I don't even know, probably almost 90 clients right now, I've had 3 clients that have said stop emailing me.
Yeah.
So it's like, no problem.
And 2 parts to that is somebody might not love getting emailed all the time. They would probably prefer your phone call.
Probably.
Right? And then
But I prefer email.
Then you've got somebody who honestly is used to it, right? Like they get bombarded with, and that's the way we prospect here in real estate, right? It's like, keep it top of mind. Some people don't care, right? I don't love all the number of emails I get, so I filter them out. And
I'm scared what my phone's gonna look like just for the time we're being on this.
So I've made it so a lot of people go into my spam folder, and I check my spam folder. But I don't need you to be a priority.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to I shouldn't have to open your email to find out that you've got a price reduction on your property. Because I saw it before, it's on the top of my mind. I don't need that, right? Like I would find you a client if I had it, because I would love to help you out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Buyer's agents versus seller's agents.
Okay.
Why the hell do people even distinguish the two?
I don't know. I also don't understand necessarily why the commission is different, because I understand that like listing agent has a little bit more responsibility on like maybe making it look nice, staging it. There's some extra costs there.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
documentations too.
But ultimately, sure, and that we all know strata companies suck.
Oh yeah.
And they charge you through the butthole. But buyers agents do all the work realistically. Sellers, like in 2021, you could list and do nothing, and it would be sold in a week.
Yeah.
So I've never understood why there's like the price discrepancy there, because buyer agents have to like maybe show 40 homes before they get the one a client likes. They're doing all the legwork, and to me that should be like, you should get paid more.
And sometimes like a seller's agent might only work a particular neighborhood. Yeah. And they kind of have that neighborhood as their
fair.
core group.
Yeah.
Right. So like there's been legwork there that we don't see.
But
why would you tell somebody that you're not going to help them buy a home when you're a seller's agent?
I can't even count the amount of times I've called. Like, so at the beginning I used to cold call realtors and had like a script and a pitch, and Never.
My name's Justin. I'm
Never back down.
Mortgage.
Basically, yeah. And they'd be like, "Oh, I only work with sellers." I'd be like, "That's a lie, because sellers turn to buyers."
Yeah.
Like you're not even telling the truth.
But it just like, why would you say to somebody, I'm not going to help you secure a home. I'll help you sell it though. So call me in 5 years when you don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not showing.
Well, because it's like quote unquote easier, I guess, or
Maybe.
or you make more potentially.
And a lot of people say like, when you're a seller's agent, people come to you. And I don't disagree with that. But I also find that you attract people to come to it.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like if you brand yourself as like the luxury home agent, theoretically, you're going to get more luxury home clients because they think there's some specialty to that.
Yeah.
When there isn't.
When it's just, yeah.
Sorry, anyone that's a luxury home agent.
I'm trying my best. The camera there. Yeah, but it's true. Like, and what is a luxury home? Like, everybody wants $1 million house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So here, everything is $1 million for a house.
Maybe it's 2 million.
Yeah, right. But that's the scary part. It's like,
Yeah.
when does it become a luxury home?
Yeah. On that note, so I know somebody that's looking to sell a property that they think is worth a lot more than it is. How do you deal with those expectations? So like, for instance, it's probably on the market, could be on the market for like maybe at best 2.5 right now. And they think it could be like 3.5.
You'll never get beyond the market value.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people have to understand is like, there's only a buyer for that house, and that's their budget, right? Or that's the amount that they're willing to pay. If you try and go above that one buyer, there's not more that kind of materialize. There's statistics that come out monthly about what the searches are for what value of home. And we're not seeing these $2 million homes being sold because only about 1% of the higher viewing
Can't afford them.
go to that.
Yeah.
Right? You're becoming more and more niche as you go up higher. Do you need to go that high?
Now,
A lot of the growth has happened in the last 5 years. That growth, you're just trying to get that, as much as you can and respectfully.
Yeah.
But if you can't even get that, you have to see what the market will actually give you.
the clients are being difficult, so they're like, "No, it's 3 million. We won't go for less." Do you walk away from that?
No,
Or do you list it at 3 million and then wait so you can say, "I told you so"?
I think the I told you so route is horrible. If you show people beforehand, I actually never tell people what I think the true price of their home is. I give them a range. And it's usually about plus or minus 5%. I don't try and make it too big. But I do that intentionally so that people can kind of determine based on what they're seeing from what I show them as well. I pull information about different prices, what other people are sold for, not just listed for. So that will show, hey, there's been this many sold at this price point. That's where we kind of need to be. There's actually statistics that you can get in the United States, but we don't have it here in Canada, where you can find out what people are viewing, what they're going to see. So that price point will, hey, we have we have 25 buyers looking at 950,000, and then
like 2 at whatever.
Yeah, so it will give you that, but we don't have that. We don't have access to that. But it gives people an idea that, hey, this is where the fish are at. Your price point, if you need to sell, needs to be with those fish. Right?
So even with that big of a discrepancy, you'd still be like, well, maybe you list at 2.7 and we come down 200 grand. And
my tactic would be, hey, help me out on the marketing costs. I'll get you listed. I'll get you promoted. I'll get you all over. This is what it's going to be. We put it up at the price you want. If it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. And then ultimately, I've kind of
mitigated your expenses.
There's a risk, right?
Yeah.
Like, I need to hedge my money on your home selling. If I don't believe it will sell at that point, I shouldn't put my money into it.
So if they were willing to do 2.5, then you'd be like, no problem. I think it's going to sell there too, or close to it. I'll do everything. Not a big deal. Yeah. But because they don't want to, you're like, hey, you're going to meet 50-50 or whatever the case might be.
Along that line, right?
Yeah.
Or put it on there at my expense. And if they decide to take it off or it doesn't sell, we recuperate costs on an agreed term.
Are you allowed to do that?
I think you should. I don't know if I haven't been into that situation, but you can.
Because I know, like, I can't charge a fee on a mortgage that I don't close, right?
Yeah.
So if they piece out and they go to somewhere else, I can't be like, hey, you owe me $1,500.
Yeah. So if they cancel a listing with me and it's written in what we call their Schedule A, then absolutely, it's within that contract boundary that they're agreed to, right? Of course, you would provide receipts and everything would be on there, but you wouldn't put your money into a failing company in the stock market.
I probably would, because I like to lose money in the stock market.
Right. So, but that's a way I look at it. Is like, this person wants to sell their home, but they want too far above market value. I would definitely let them know, like, that's my belief and that's my opinion. I would rather lose their business by being truthful to them than gain their business by trying to tell the lie to them.
So on a funny note, I had BCMSA, which is the managing body of brokers, and I think right, in BC, called me because I was apparently mean to a client last week. So
did you not smile over the phone?
I guess they didn't like my upfront comments of, you can't afford this home until you pay off your consumer debt.
Yeah. That's become a very problematic thing right now too.
So I guess I was too blunt and I came across mean.
But that's true, right? And yeah.
So I had to be like, so is there a rule that says I can't be like mean? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, I don't understand the problem. Like, go to the people doing fraud.
Yeah. And that's
Thank you for your call.
That's the part that's really scaring me, is there's a lot of fraudulent behavior. And even the questions I'm asked when I'm selling a home, I've been asked before, like, hey, can you tell me what the rent would be in this place? That's not up to me to tell you. That's your due diligence.
Yeah, Craigslist, Google, Facebook.
Yeah.
You're good.
And then, well, what was the person paying before? Well, it's not a residential tenancy. It was some type of different tenancy that paid X dollars, but you're not able to get that. No, that's okay. That's all we need to know. Okay, I know there's fraud going on after that, right? And that's the part that scares me about, like, that a lot of people are getting the money they shouldn't be allotted to do these purchases.
It's really interesting. So like when rates were kind of where they're at now, 20 years ago, there was 40-year amortizations. There was no money down. There was like, you could buy a house and you could refinance it right away for like 103% of the value. Like, there's all these different programs that were around that you could have creative financing for, where brokers were brokering, I guess.
Yeah.
Due to government oversight, now things have become extremely difficult, right? And it's interesting to see. I do understand why fraud is committed, which is terrible to say, but like, if somebody wants a home and they only make 60 grand, they need to beef things up. It's a very lucrative business for somebody of that side of the world to make. Like, you're going to get paid 20, 30 grand to fake a job letter, fake a company. Like, you do 10 of those, there's $300,000, right? Like, I understand it is technically helping people, and I believe, I don't know if the latest statistic, but I'm pretty sure any fraudulent mortgage has almost a 0% default rate to a certain degree. Huh. So, because people will like eat ramen to make their mortgage payments, especially in that situation. Yeah. But it's always interesting that like rates are high because of everything that's going on, but yet there's been no relief. And I know the Prime Minister has made some kind of pushes towards there might be some relief next week in their announcement, but I just don't see, like, the government's tightened it so much. I don't understand how it's gonna like be easier for people to buy things.
I still don't get why people can show proof of their spending, prove that they're able to spend X dollars on rent every month.
So I do think that is going to be good. The rent going to credit, I actually think will be a positive thing, especially too, like with lending, we can get exceptions on things. So the fact that now we can be like, hey, this guy's been paying a $2,900, condo rent payment for like 12 months or whatever. Yeah. Like, his mortgage is $2,000. Like, there has to be some leeway here. I'm sure that will come into play a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's actually like probably the only positive move.
Yeah. Do you think part of the having a credit means that they have to actually be in a system where they can keep track of it, and then now the landlord, who might be evading taxes, is on the hook for the taxes that counts as income?
Yeah, well, first of all, anyone that has a rental should be claiming the rental income, and not because of taxes and all the other crap. There's generally enough expenses in a rental property that you're not going to pay almost any tax on it. I know this from personal experience. The thing is, you got to be claiming that income, because that income can help you down the road for something, right? That income can help you. You can just get a line of credit. It can be just anything in the financing world versus like not claiming it. Yeah, you get all this cash, but what is, like, if you have peddly cash, you're probably just spending it peddly.
Yeah.
So it's not helping you, right? Yeah, there's probably like an aspect of like, that's kind of like that Bear Trust thing they brought out a couple weeks ago that they canceled on. I think that's kind of a way too to like probably get extra taxes on things and whatnot. We know the government's hemorrhaging money, right? So I'm sure everything they're kind of doing is trying to like suck back as much as possible.
Even shutting down Airbnbs. Here in Colombia.
We'll see what happens there.
Yeah. I really encourage, like, people might have a stance on it that it's not good for the general public to get a home and they are tying up homes. But there's a lot of people that work temporarily at particular jobs, and they might only be able to work 3 months, and nobody will rent a long-term rental to them for 3 months. So they're going to a hotel where they don't get, a kitchenette.
Yeah, I definitely think you have to chase the money in this situation, which the hotel industry is a big proponent of people making these decisions. So that's one thing that you have to kind of be a little skeptical of. Like you said, there's, to make these rules that you can only be like an owner occupied property to be an Airbnb. I think there should be more of a push to make Airbnbs more legitimate business, right? So you have to have that job, the business license, have to have everything lined up correctly. Then sure, all the power to you. I don't think somebody buying a condo to be an Airbnb, like say like Kelowna, that I don't think that's affected the real estate market, or not nearly enough to say the least, right? But that rule is in April 1st, right? Or is it?
I think started, yeah.
It started. So we haven't really seen an influx of sales of anything. So clearly it hasn't scared. I mean, this could be, I haven't really looked at any data, so I could be speaking out like completely wrong here, but I would say that if there hasn't been an uptick in sales and like we're flooded with condos or different things, then clearly it hasn't done what it has and people are not worried as much for it, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely not going to fix the housing problem. And the fact that we have contractors now not building and like contractors just finishing and things like that, like
that's the biggest problem. Housing start.
Yeah.
Not only the housing starts, like the amount of new coming Canadians are far outpacing our already taxed housing supply, right? And densifying somebody's home takes a lot of money. You just don't add 4 suites into a house for free.
They are definitely not doing what they need to do to get the housing starts in place. And like a part of it is honestly the borrowing costs, right?
And people might say, hey, I see all these buildings being built around me.
They're sold.
They're not even going to the market.
Or that too, yeah.
Right? Like a lot of rent only buildings are the ones that are being built right now.
And those are still going to be charged at, $2,500 for a 1-bedroom or whatever the case might be.
And they won't become non-market housing. A non-market housing would be a rental situation where the price stays at what it is the entire time. So 40 years from now, it will still be the 2024 market rate. And so that allows people to survive down the road. And we're not seeing that being built.
Yeah.
And sadly, it might not be profit. We don't need stuff to be profitable. We need stuff to be attainable. So,
but that comes down to then the builders needed to be profitable, or why are they building it?
Yeah.
So,
right. And that we'll cycle right back, is how much money do you need to feel successful? These people have these questions that, you know what, there's more pride in somebody showing, hey, I built that house, I sold that house, I built that bridge, right?
This house won an award or whatever the case is. Yeah.
And that's something to be said, is your accolade for doing such a gracious item, right? So
awards, you won one just recently, or no, you're just shy, weren't you?
Yes. That's interesting because like there's so many different tiers for awards in real estate. With Century 21, we have Centurion Award, kind of our 1%, I believe. I don't know what the numbers are. I wasn't chasing it. I wasn't making that a site. I had a number of transactions I wanted to do.
Did you get it?
I didn't get it.
Okay.
Even to the point where, since last year was such a hard year, the company actually dropped their standard. If you won an award that they dropped the standard on,
I wouldn't.
Would you accept it and would you brag about it?
No.
Right? But I did win an award. I was the ambassador of the year for my brokerage. And those are like great accolades to have.
No.
There was an award that like platinum or something like that I received, but it's to me, I don't go after the awards, right? You know what the best part of my year was?
What?
So I came from an industry that is just bonkers at Christmas. Like it's all hands on deck. It is bonkers, like big dollar sales, no breathing space. My best moments last year were at Christmas when I was running around to all the transactions I had that year, seeing people's new homes and dropping off bottles of wines and thank yous.
Yeah.
It felt so good to spend time with somebody one-on-one
In their house.
in their home without being like, we need help here, we need help there. It's just one-on-one. And that was the best part. Yeah.
So
Business-wise, there's a lot of other like milestones, but business-wise, I thought that was amazing.
just to bring it back to the awards now. So you have this ambassador award. Is that something that you like just email out and brag about, or is that
Not
something?
at all.
No, you,
And like some people will add it. Whatever people do with their awards, that's to me. I also said like I don't speak a lot about my personal life. I don't go for awards, right? Like it's not the driving motivation. I don't go after money. It's not my driving motivation.
yeah.
I think there's more things that don't cost any money that I really enjoy, right? And those are the things I go after.
Yeah, so I've also been not recently, but I've been recipient of some awards, and I've never posted about it. And I've never really given it two thoughts. But coming off of, I guess, the real estate board doing their thing and like seeing everyone post their whatever they've gotten, and some brokers recently have been getting some stuff. But it just made me kind of think like does the consumer truly care if you're top 5% or top, like there's so many different, right? Or they see like this ambassador award. It's like, well, what does that mean?
I drove down a major street and it is lined with billboards. And we all know that billboards are either real estate agents,
lawyer firms.
But there's multiple who said they were number one in that city. And it's like, okay, out of the 3 that I see that say they're number one of you
is
might be right, but 2 of you are liars. So you're not helping yourself.
Yeah.
And there's no way. To me, it's important that people know like who you are, say one-on-one, talking with you, or even hearing you over the phone. And
I've worked with a couple quote unquote 1% realtors that I think are terrible and not good. And I'm sure that's the same way with brokers. I'm sure it's with any, like, you could be the best dentist. I'm sure you probably have an off day or whatever. Maybe it's just their off day, but
quality over quantity.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. That's kind of where I was like thinking of going. Like I won a top 30 under 30 award, but it was like, I don't care. Like,
how much spam do you get? How much like phishing attempts do you get? That's the one thing I've noticed in real estate.
Okay. Well, right now I had my inbox down to 0 and we're at 37 and we've been recording for like about an hour.
Yeah.
And I probably only need to reply to 5 or 6 of those emails.
Right? And how many ask you to run your social media so you give them a password?
There's that. There's like right now my website, I've had some issues with the current host, so now it's on pause. So I have like 4 different people be like, oh, we can host your website. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah. And it's just a trap, right?
Yeah.
And lies.
Yeah. Or the random DMs on like my business Instagram, like, hey, we can build your following by like 10,000 at the end of the week. It's like, I don't want 10,000 people that live in Bangladesh. Like that doesn't sound any good to me.
Yeah, it doesn't profit you. I actually found that too, is like the number of followers doesn't dictate how many transactions you do.
No.
Or value, right?
Yeah.
Sadly, like we equate in society like how many followers you have. But it's not the metric you should be looking at, right?
I have, in this business mastermind, I already brought up his name. So he's been a broker for 30 years, does crazy volume. He's probably the country's #1 broker, but he does not have any business accolades on Google. So like, there's no Google reviews, no nothing like that.
Yeah.
I'm only, I think, at 37. I have a couple negative ones. Most of them are pretty positive. What do you say? Like, obviously, like if you see something that says, 800 Google reviews at 5-star, you probably actually like, what's going on here, right? Because like no one's perfect.
You actually so when I see something like that, I actually go filter from lowest to highest.
So I generally will look at the low ones and I'll look how recent they are too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, my question is, how important do you think having the Google reviews or like any sort of reviews or business page or whatever is versus like just word of mouth? Like, hey, call Jesse because he's my guy. Yeah. He'll take care of you.
I found, so when you get word of mouth, when you're recommended by somebody to a new client, when I go there, I don't have to sell.
Yeah.
I just have to do. And I have to kind of show them where that value is coming from. They're trusting somebody else, and that other person's experience has opened the door for you. When you get somebody from a Google review, they're interviewing you.
Yeah.
They're looking for your faults.
Yeah.
And they want to know what your faults are. And then they microscope into that fault. And I don't think that's right, because not everybody's going to be perfect. But on the other hand, is somebody who has a few issues on their previous transactions. Every transaction's different, right?
And they don't always go smooth, unfortunately, for various reasons.
And I don't know how many characters you're allowed in your Google review, but there's probably not enough space to actually explain it. And it's also one-sided.
The main thing too, like with mine in particular, and I haven't focused as much on Google reviews, so like that is also my fault. But like to have almost 800 funded files to this point, and I only have 37 Google reviews. Well, that doesn't I was like, somebody the other day was like, oh, like you must not produce very much, you must not do very much. I'm like, well, actually, like that's not the case.
Yeah.
I'm almost at 1,000 deals basically, and it's like does that, like my 37 Google reviews has no correlation to the deals I've funded.
Yeah.
Really, theoretically, right?
I've said this before on this podcast. I don't ever want to be on a billboard.
No.
I don't ever want to be a bus bench, because those to me don't.
I would be interested to see what like people do with my beard or like what I get. But
I would like to start an Instagram account of photos of bus benches that have been altered. Like a lot of devils,
a lot of Hitler stashes.
Definitely. Yeah. And to me, like, there's humor in it, but sadly people choose to go with a lot of those agents, even if they have bad Google reviews.
Yeah, I'm working with a team now that, thanks to you, that is arguably one of the top realtors around. But like, I don't think it's the billboards that get it. It's the fact that you see the signs of that team almost in any neighborhood you go, like from honestly Chilliwack to Langley at this point, right?
It's quite interesting too. I've noticed a lot of bus benches and billboards and bus stops being switched over to individual like groups.
Yeah.
And they're taking a greater market share of these bus benches. So it is clearly profitable in a certain way. But
I think it's when you're like targeting like an area more so than anything, right?
But if I went in and I had to sell myself, I'm not to be sold because I'm not for sale, right?
Well,
I'm doing
that's up for debate.
But I'm doing a transaction with people and I'm helping them.
Yeah.
And it's a mutually benefiting thing, right? Yeah. And that's the step I want to take with people is like, hey, I'm here to help.
Yeah. Well, I think like that was like when I dialed in my discovery call originally, that was the biggest thing I found. It wasn't so much anymore of an interview with the client. It was more like, hey, what's your situation? And this is how I can add value to your situation. Whether you like that or not, do we proceed, right? And so like that client we talked about where it wasn't a fit, like I had some speculation that this actually may not even work unless we went a different route. And then you were saying, well, they had to go that different route anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where like there's always plentiful deals out there. So like never be like, oh, okay, this is the end all be all. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 million transaction, like there'll be another one eventually, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting you brought up the point that person had to go that route anyways. Well, you were truthful about it, right? And I'm sure that person said, hey, so-and-so told me. When Justin told me this is going to... Or they
just weren't shocked when they got brought up again. Because when I brought it up, he was like, no, we can't do that. But like if he probably hears it the second time, he's like, well, so be it, right?
Yep.
So
totally. And I'm seeing a lot of that too. Is like there's more people going in on homes together.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. Even if you're borrowing a few $100,000 from somebody else's credit to do it, go to the lawyer, do your paperwork. But you get in, and that other person benefits in the end. Yeah,
the amount of clients I've had to talk to about doing like joint venture agreements, and like don't bring it up during the mortgage transaction. You can do it afterwards, but like just do like I'm doing one right now with a friend of mine to refinance a rental property, and he's gonna make 25 grand at the end of it for helping me out. And it's just I'm using his income because I haven't paid myself enough for the last year, and it's like easy peasy that way, right? But like these deals can be worked, and they don't have to be like you do the agreements that way you're on good terms now. So if something does go sideways, it's still good terms and everyone's winning at the end.
Even multi-generational family should be doing something on paper. Yeah,
money ruins a family real fast.
Totally. I purchased with a family member when I first got into a detached home, and I thought, yeah, it was great. But nothing was on paper, and it just sours after a little bit, and there's no exit plans and stuff like that. So all that stuff, a professional will get you through it. Yeah, sure. Maybe it costs you. I think mine was only $1,000. Maybe let's say $2,000 on the high side because you have an expensive lawyer.
like that's money well spent, because now you still have a relationship at the end of it, and everything's like, it doesn't matter if there's like a complete sideways turn and that person like is completely dead to you. This agreement is the agreement, and so you have to honor it.
Yeah.
I know in Ontario, for instance, they brought in some new licensing that you had to do an extra test to be able to do like private loans and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think only 30% of the agents did it. So that doesn't say that like 70% left the industry, but there's a big potential that like, cause I don't do a lot of privates. I maybe it's maybe about 10% of my business, but like that's enough of my business that I would get that licensing, right?
Yeah.
So like, I can only imagine there's probably out of that 70% that didn't do that extra course, I bet you 40% of that 70 probably didn't renew their license. Are probably out of the industry. It's probably similar out here, just to brokers. So
I think the regulation, like we always have to take courses. That's probably one of the things I'm lacking right now, is like I'm not committing myself to educating every month and taking a day to do that. I know, and that's where I see myself failing right now, is like, but a lot of the stuff I know about, but it's always good. Like you might tease one little.
there's like one little thing, yeah.
Right? So, or like a certain trick how to do it. I think that's important to me. And that's where I'm failing, is like sitting down, organize my time blocking to give that morning or afternoon to do a little bit of learning.
Out of your brokerage or the people that you're in your center of influence, how many agents were just like 2, 3, under 10 deals a year that are no longer right now?
It's pretty wild. By no means am I the top realtor in my brokerage, right? But I knew I was doing really well, and a lot of people told me so. And I knew I have more, like I could do way more. But then I saw how many transactions I did and how high up on the list I was. And I was like, wow.
And
that means like everybody below me.
And he did good, guys. He did good, but like you could do better. You'll admit
I will
do better.
I will. But like I see that and I was like, wow, like that means everybody else did below that much. And then somebody shared with me who was lower on the list, they shared with me how much they made. And I was like, whoa. And they were in the top 20% or top 20 people. I was like, wow, like that really says something, that like there's that many people who do less than 5 transactions a year.
Yeah.
And that's really scary, because like there's a break-even point with like your costs.
But I was gonna say, just like fees, even just your time to do the schooling, like it took me 7 months. Like if I didn't do enough income to like justify, like honestly, I thought I'd never go back to school. So like for me, that was really hard. And so like if I can't do enough income to like at least double what I was making before, like it doesn't make sense to put yourself through everything.
Right. So there's a break-even point, and I say it's about $60,000 worth of income. And that would be on average 6 or 7 transactions. If you can't do that, you're not coming out ahead for sure.
And that's a deal every 2 months, theoretically.
Yeah. And then I'll give you a little insight to it. If you're making $60,000 worth of commission, $15,000 will probably go to your brokerage on average. That's usually
45.
Yeah, so you're only making $45,000 a year, plus the expenses that you have to get your education, plus the expenses that you have to do to put your product on the market and advertise. So there's not.
So really, you're probably looking at that break-even point is really 120 at that point to make that 60 grand.
Yeah.
By all said and done.
I have a lot of empathy towards people in the industry, and I really give a lot of help to numerous agents to kind of tell them what I was doing to get myself established and set up, and what I do as a routine. There's certain things that don't benefit you. Like I really don't feel like people focusing so much on social media will get a lot of transactions that way. It helps you become top of mind. It helps you, stay in front of people. But ultimately, people don't care about your songs and dances. They just want your services.
Yeah.
Right? Back to that education part. You're better off spending that time educating yourself about the industry and having that know-how so that you can show that you're way better and have a better value to give people.
I don't think social media is huge for realtors. I think it's big for brokers because we can reach out to you guys that way.
Yeah.
And so like out of that list of 100 that I emailed to, like I grew probably 20 or 30 of them just by DMing and like building a relationship that way, liking their different stories and like truly liking it. Not like I have a bunch of realtors I work with now that have done 75 hard or are doing 75 hard, right? So like we have that in common, or they're, I don't know, most of the people I work with are generally health conscious, right? Like, so there's definitely like a stereotype of like realtor type that I'm working with. So I think it's important that way, but I would agree with you. Like at the end of the day, like if you have no clients, and you're having a hard time with it, like door knock, cold call, right? Do like these old school things that people did in the 80s. Yeah, they suck. Door knocking's not as bad, but cold calling sucks. But like you will find leads, you will have communications, you will get deals.
Door knocking's an amazing thing because you get to meet people.
Yeah.
Right? And you knock on a door and I've never been screamed at.
Never once.
Right? And that's a big fear. It's like, what if somebody tells me to get lost? Guess what, man? You get lost.
You will.
Right? Like you walk away, you leave. And then like in Canada, we can't just grab the phone book and start calling people. Right? And that's something that I know in the United States they can do. So there's different ways we have to go about prospecting. And I don't buy leads. I don't want leads. Like I kind of said, I'd rather have those people that know, like, and trust me, reach out to me. And if you don't have those people that know, like, and trust you, create those people. Start knowing people and liking people and trusting people, and you'll get that back, right?
Door knocking, worst experience door knocking, even if it's not a bad experience.
I don't know. I always ask people about their plans. Like they're at their home and people want to talk to you about like how nice their home and what they've created, right? So I really had no bad experience. Like maybe a long day of walking in uncomfortable shoes, but really like the first time I went out, I was dressed in dress shoes. Second time I went out, no way. Prospect a neighborhood. Somebody might already say, oh, we're thinking of selling, but we already talked to our real estate agent. That's good. Thank you. That's not a problem. If I have a buyer, I'll bring a buyer by.
Would you go down the route of like, if you need a second opinion, or do you leave it at that? So like, cause like when I one of my things, like I always do like a no strings attached second opinion.
Yeah. Like they have an idea where their value is. Cause like I walk around, I have the list of recent sales and I give that to them.
Yeah.
Right. I give them an article of value. But most people are set. Right. And why try and steal business from somebody else? You don't want that going on to you. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if somebody was lying to you and saying that they already had a realtor, why would you want to work with the liar? Right? So that's the way I kind of saw it. I was like, here you go. Have a great day. Not a problem. You have a very beautiful home and it will sell. Right? And it will. So, yeah.
Realtors dress code. What do you think of like the suits and fancy white attire all the time versus like casual?
So I am on the casual side. Yourself?
I'm always on the casual. Not always, actually. That's not true. If I do have to meet a client, I will go a little bit nicer. Maybe a golf t-shirt.
When's the last time you golfed?
Oh, I never golfed. Right? Just strictly a golf t-shirt. It was good. I think it was honestly a deal at Costco. I think it was like a 2-for-1. I have 2 of them. Or if I do have to go to if there is the odd, like maybe elderly couple that can't get me documents, I'll definitely put on like a white tee and like a blazer and go to the office. But I'll still be in like jeans or like, that's about as fancy as I get.
Yeah. People pay me to hustle.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're like running about, I honestly try and wear pants that can move with you. When I wear pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. No pants today.
No pants today. Everybody, just so you know, I think the camera's right here.
No, we're down here.
You can see knees.
Yeah, you got your ankles.
Oh. But that being said, like I want to be able to do stuff. And like sometimes you have to, go up an embankment or so you don't wear your fancy shoes. Right? Because you only typically get one opportunity to go see a house before you consider putting an offer, and then you do your due diligence. So you try and get as much info about the home by looking around it. And wearing dress clothes doesn't allow you to do that at all. And then also, you're driving for so long.
Yeah, dress pants are not comfy to drive in consistently.
Like sitting in dress pants, you look good standing up, and that's, and we're not getting photos done every day, right? So yeah.
Maybe if you're a top producing realtor, you would.
Maybe. Well, yeah. I can share number one with other people if that's what it's saying. But that being said, I honestly don't think you should be wearing the best clothes out there unless you're doing, footage or something.
I agree. And like I had a client last year who didn't want to work with me because he Googled me and saw some of my powerlifting and said I was too big and I didn't care about my health. And it was really entertaining. Yeah. And I laughed about it. And I laughed about it then too, to be honest, because I'm probably the exact opposite, like a freak of health. But to do what any broker does, not even just myself, but do what any broker does, we don't need to be in, I don't even need to be in this country to do it. I could be in Mexico on the beach.
Are you allowed to, by the way?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm allowed to do contracts outside.
So like from my understanding, as long as our data is saved on a Canadian storage, so like that's the sync I use, you're fine.
Okay.
So
people want to work with you because of you.
Yeah.
So why am I trying to dress of somebody different? Like I love being in nice clothes. Don't get me wrong. I do lots of athletics.
Yeah.
I do a lot of, outdoor stuff, and that's not what I wear.
Yeah.
Right? Like a day off with hanging out with a client or a friend, I would rather put it, hanging out with a friend. That's the attire I'll be wearing.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. And you don't always want to be the best dressed person there.
I don't know. I feel like most time the best dress, like sure there's a few realtors out there that's kind of like their brand, I guess, to be high flying, but I feel like the most best dress in the room is generally like the least like accomplished.
I would agree. Like it's a facade to how they're doing. Don't get me wrong. There's awesome suits out there, right? But realistically, when you see their numbers, you're like, okay, I don't know how they afford to wear suits every day, right? Like,
or that suit in particular,
right? Yeah, I actually don't even know about name brands too. Like, do you shop based on the name brand, or do you shop based on when you go and like, oh, this fits, or this is like when I have to buy pants that just fit. Like
I have to buy because my quads are so big. I have to buy pants that are generally 3 to 4 sizes too big in the waist.
Yeah, and then you get it hemmed up.
And then no, I just wear belts. I don't even care.
Yeah, just a big rump.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it had like my fiance buys me no clothes because nothing ever fits me.
Yeah. Does your fiance ever order stuff online and it shows up at the door every day?
For her? All the time.
And then sometimes there's stuff for you.
Never anything
thrown in there. So I get hey, I got free shipping, try this on. And it's like, I didn't want this. But thank you. I appreciate it.
No.
You wanted free shipping and you're honest about it.
She tried to buy me pants, I think like year 1, and I like threw them at her. I'm like, don't buy me pants ever again. So I probably traumatized her, and this is where we're at.
I have like a few, like I said, I have a few companies I can buy pants from.
Yeah.
It's just
Denver Hayes at Mark's, they're the only pants that really fit me properly. And like look okay. So
yeah.
I don't go too far from that.
No. With being self-employed, you see a lot of people fall off the wagon and not able to make it. And even if you extend an olive branch to help them out, they just can't do it. Do you still get that a lot?
Yeah, so I coach, it was 9, it's down to 4 right now. I don't know what those other 5 people have done. They've just kind of disappeared, similar to Clayton. So I'm assuming they're probably out of it. And it's unfortunate because there was some promising efforts there and like different ideas that those 5 in particular had kind of brought up. Like I can actually see that working if it maybe is rearranged a little bit differently or whatever. But yeah, I think like this isn't an easy job to get off the ground. It's not easy because you don't get paid for potentially 90 days afterwards, and maybe even longer depending on the lender. Sometimes lenders pay different times as well. So I don't know. It is disheartening, but again, it's like people see the shiny object, which is a big paycheck, and then they think they can do it. And I think it's a little different in real estate. I do think for the most part, real estate is an easier endeavor than brokering to a certain degree. But you have to be a people person for real estate. And if you're not a people person, then you're up shit's creek already. Where for brokering, I won't speak for Ontario, but here in BC, like the course teaches you absolutely nothing to what you're actually doing. You get your license, you find a place. There's certain brokerages will just hire you right away because they know you passed your course. And then they're just like, go find deals.
Yeah.
You know nothing, you get a deal, and then it's like, how do I underwrite it? Like, what is this the best mortgage product? Like, I just had this lender meeting, and this lender says they can do ABC. Like, sounds like a good fit, but maybe it's like a new lender, and they don't know. So, I personally am of the mindset of like it's oversaturated, both realtors and brokers, and we can use less. Mainly because when you are oversaturated, it generally has more bad apples at that point, and so then you're getting, you're hearing stuff on the news about this fraud or this bad deal or this lawsuit or whatever, which does no good. But yeah, I think it sucks to see them go, especially if they're a colleague or like you've had some interactions with them. They seem like a genuine person, I think, but overall it's probably good at thinning of the herd a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's also really good seeing that, for me in particular though, but left people are believing big banks finally. And so there is more of the more people want to have a conversation with a broker because they realize that like a big bank is a corporation that is going to be ultimately paying their shareholders versus doing what's best for you, right?
I always bring up the point about shareholder. If you had $3,000 in your bank account, you get your $15 to $20 a month free.
Yeah.
For free banking. But if you took that $3,000 and bought shares with it, then the bank will
theoretically potentially pay you
to bank with them and cover your costs. So like there has to be that transparency with people to actually know that, right?
Yeah, it's definitely like more the almost your generation, but a little bit older than you, that definitely have like the mindset that brokers are like the crooked side of lending.
Yeah.
Still, like it was kind of in the 90s.
You couldn't get into the bank, so the bank won't deal with you, so
Yeah.
you got to use
Yeah,
the broker to find.
it's like crook or hook kind of idea, but that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, like times have changed, obviously, and like it wasn't too long ago, DocuSign wasn't a real thing. Right now, we use DocuSign for everything, so
Yeah.
that's fine. Those people can have those old ideals, and they'll fade away eventually.
Totally. And I think it's important that like people are hiring people to work for them. Okay, going to a broker, we're going to the bank. You ask the bank to do that work for you. This is all they had.
It's actually, so it's on that we had a mutual client whose father kiboshed working with me, and it was really funny. I remember during the conversation, I was like, "Hey, do you know how I work?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd probably have to pay you like per hour or whatever." I was like, "No, I actually work for free until we fund a mortgage. I get 1%, blah 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 blah." And he was like, like totally caught off guard. Like he's like, "Oh, so like I don't pay you anything?" I'm like, "No, like we're good. Like I'm just here to like give you advice or whatever." And then to find out down the road that like I guess the father had a different idea and like have to go to whatever bank, and like it's all good there. But it's such a weird mentality when somebody's going to do something for free, theoretically, to help you, put you in the best situation, listen to where like your future is potentially going, and then to make sure that like whatever product you're in now doesn't hinder that future plan.
I have a belief that people on average move every 8 years in the market we're in. Some people much more.
And they break their mortgage every 3 years, statistically. So.
So that being said, I can't make somebody who just bought a house move, right? Like that's not the way it works. I honestly believe that I show my value well before the transaction comes, and they have no complaints about paying me.
Well, that was even the thing, like in that conversation, like, so there's some advanced mortgage strategies where you can make your mortgage tax deductible, and like basically you grow your portfolio by having a rental property to do so. But like I always lightly touch on that to see like to see where their appetite is on potentially growing a portfolio, because I take notes on that, or B, like are they even interested in potentially accessing equity to get into the next property, or is this potentially like their forever home, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's just a very, very 30,000 foot view, but like just to hear somebody be like, I've never heard that before. You're like, okay, hook, line, sinker, like I'm in, right? That one was actually, I was shocked that it went the way it did, but
you never know too, right?
each of it is, right?
Yeah, and you don't know who's involved in a transaction until it really comes to light. So back to the part about like people struggling, agents or other self-employed, it's really tough right now.
A lot of layoffs. I've seen a lot of like blue collar workers been at their job for tenure. Definitely like they get the pink slip and they're like, oh, I can't proceed now. I got to get a new job, right?
Brings it back to that whole notion of paying cash and keeping the cash away from all the fees, right? Like start with $50 and the bank you tap your card, the bank takes $1.
Yeah, with cash or keeping money in your bank or like anything like that, like ultimately you're losing value because of inflation, right? And inflation's always going to be here, and ultimately like the $1 million house that used to be 130 grand is $1 million because we've had this 2% inflation target for 40 years, and yada yada yada. So like all we've heard a lot of people talk about is the credit card debt's going up. No one has like a fallback plan anymore, and I honestly think like it's probably the credit cards have been the fallback plan since, honestly, I feel like early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like savings, like even when I was in construction, like I never really had much more than maybe 10 grand saved at any given time.
Yeah.
And that was only because I had just a really big paycheck and couldn't spend it all before I went back to work.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll get banned for this. President Trump's presidency, he was talking about Europe going into negative interest rates.
Yeah. I think Japan for sure did. I can't remember if Europe did or not.
That being the point is like they could go the other way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've gone from like the oscillation of one side to the other.
Yeah.
And it's too much change in so little time that's making it really difficult for people to.
Like I said too, we talked about briefly like the qualifications, and like there used to be a program in like 2013 where if you just started a company, it was an excavating company, and you stated you made so much money, like you would get qualified. Like there was basically as simple as it was. Now you have to show like your third born child that you're planned to have, and like your bank account, and show that you've never spent anything on Tim Hortons ever, and like it's ludicrous the amount of documents you have to show. They've held you to this like target of like 4.5% of your income is what you can qualify for, which is like crazy when there's so many people especially here in the Lower Mainland that like I grew up in a house, so I want to buy a house for the first time instead of like trying to do the property ladder like a lot of our parents had to do at one point, right? And it's interesting to see the way like things are going, and like I don't think it's going to get better.
No.
unfortunately.
I've had talks with people about the property ladder, and yes, like some people bought into a detached house right away, but now the prices are so spread out, we have to do different jumps,
Yeah.
right? So you go from like a townhouse to a detached house. Well, that first detached house you get will probably be a fixer upper.
Yeah.
That's a price point that you can afford. And then the second detached house that you go to might be that like
Yeah.
forever home.
Well, even too, but like a lot of people don't even realize like how much extra work do you have to do in the house now? Like when you have a detached house, like that's like cutting the grass. Like I have a townhouse that's a corner unit, and like mow the back deck is like deck. There's very little grass. So like there's no grass upkeep. But if you have a 5,000 square foot lot that is 2,500 square feet of grass, well, now you have to cut the grass every 2-3 weeks during the summer.
Yeah.
Right. That means you have to buy a lawnmower. Like now, do you do a push lawnmower, or you have like $1,000 lawnmower? Right. There's all these extra expenses that come along with like a single detached house that people don't even take into consideration.
Right. I also find too, when people are buying strata properties right now, they're like, oh, the strata fee is so high. Well, because people aren't involved in that part of the maintenance, the upkeep. And then, oh, why is the insurance so high for it? Well, because people aren't upkeeping and keeping an eye on it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword. Like you either participate in a strata to reduce your strata fees, whether it be gardening or helping out, or you've just paid it and you count it up to the cost of living, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the mindset of buyers is interesting right now, to say the least.
We'll see you next time.